A theme park thrill ride involves a towering carriage that rapidly moves passengers up and down along a vertical axis, as shown in the figure. So while I'm reading, I'm looking at the picture at the same time. The carriage is lifted to the top of the tower, then released to move down the tower. Now, here we have some important information. The ride involves 10 controlled bounces. 10 controlled bounces from the highest point to the lowest point and back to the highest point. Point X is located on the bottom of the carriage. The height x above the ground in feet can be modeled by a periodic function h at time equals 0 seconds. X is at its highest point of 120 feet. All right, this is just way too much English. Let me start writing information. So we have t equals 0 seconds, and that's when it's at its highest point. Now, we really don't like to use this kind of language. The highest point really means the maximum. So the maximum is 120 feet. So now it says the lowest point for x is at a height of 20 feet. So the lowest meaning that's our minimum. Okay. And then the next time x is at its highest point, so again, it's reaching back to its highest point, which we refer to as the maximum, is at t equals 8 seconds. So remember, anytime you're dealing with period, and in this case, we're talking about the time period, since h of t is where t is the time in seconds, okay? So we're talking about time period, and so period is always from a minimum to a minimum or a maximum to a maximum. And in this problem, we see a maximum to a maximum, and the time period would be 8 seconds minus 0, which is 8 seconds. So this helps us to figure out which of the following expressions will match the time period. So remember, the number or the term in front of the t would be our b. And whenever we're talking about period is 2 pi over b. So if I were to plug in, for example, we either have a choice of pi over 4 or pi over 8 in the multiple choices. Let's see which one works to give us 8 seconds. So we have 2 pi over 4. And remember, when you divide fractions, you keep the first one the same and you multiply by the second flipped. And so the pi's cancel, so 2 times 4 is 8. So this is working out. I'm just going to show you when I plug in the second one. So we have 2 pi over b. In this case, we're trying pi over 8. So when you divide fractions, you keep the first fraction the same, and you multiply by the second reciprocal. And then 2 times 8 is 16, which is a no-go. So already in the choices, we know we're going to eliminate anything with pi over 8. And so that's choice C and choice D. Now, how do we proceed with the problem? Well, before we proceed, I want to go over some details that are quite important and might apply for other future questions. So why is it that all of the multiple choices have 50 in the beginning and 70 at the end? Well, it makes total sense because 50 plus 70 is 120, which is the max. And 70 minus 50 is 20, which is the min. So those numbers make total sense. Okay, now when you plug in the numbers for these expressions, when t equals 0, we have to have a result of 120 feet. And when t equals 8, we have to have the result of 120 feet. So we're just going to do some math, and most of this might be done mentally, but I'm just going to show the workout to see what's going on mentally. So when we do this part first, we're going to plug in t equals 0. So then anything times 0 is 0. And then a sign of 0 is 0. And any number times 0 is 0. And then 0 plus 70, well, that is 70, and that is not equal to 120. So already we know this didn't work out for the first one, so we don't even need to bother checking it for the second one. Let's just prove why B works out. So let's do the math. Once again, this is probably done mentally for a lot of you, but I'm just going to show the work. So when you plug in T as 0 here, anything times 0 is 0. Then we have cosine of 0, which is going to be 1. And then 50 times 1 is 50. And then plus 70 is 120, which worked out. And just to prove that it even works out for t equals 8, so we have pi over 4 times 8, which is 2 pi. And then cosine of 2 pi, well, that's 1. And then 50 times 1 is 50, plus 70 is 120. So it worked out